How do you reflect on England, given what else has happened at the World Cup, given the other shocks we've seen? How much are they sitting pretty at this point?
Yeah, I thought it was very impressive, even in the aftermath of the game, before we'd seen some of the shocks that we've seen in the last few days, because I know how difficult it is in that first game at a World Cup, no matter who the opposition is, and especially even in this tournament, because there's been no warm-up games at all for anybody. And I think that may be one of the reasons why a few teams have, come a cropper against opposition you'd expect them to beat. But as I said, it was very impressive from England, to start a tournament like that. Probably the best start we've seen since maybe going back to 1982 in the World Cup in Spain. So fantastic start, and hopefully England can kick on again tomorrow night.
Does it suit England, who are used to playing 2 tough games a week all the time, in the way that some other countries are not?
I wouldn't say that's a huge advantage for England. I think most of the players now, in all the top countries, play all over Europe. They're in the Champions League and they're playing the domestic games as well. I think what will help England is the fact that this tournament comes in the middle of a season, really, and other nations normally have a winter break, and I think that does help them come the summertime when tournaments normally come around. So that's the big advantage for England, not so much dealing with, an accumulation of games. I think that's the norm now for all top players in Europe, but the fact we're getting a tournament when we're maybe 14 or 15 games into a Premier League season, I think that can only help England.
It sounds like Harry Kane's going to be fine despite that ankle. How big a concern would it have been for you if he couldn't play?
I think it would be a big concern, and I don't think it's too disrespectful to the other strikers in the squad to just say that there is a big drop-off behind Harry Kane, because Harry Kane, over the last 5 or 6 years, has been a world-class striker. He's a top goal scorer in the last World Cup. He'll be looking to do the same and get off the mark against the US tomorrow. So, yes, I think we all know that Harry Kane is one of the first names on the team sheet, and the backup behind him leaves us a little bit weaker. And if Harry Kane was to miss 2 or 3 games in this tournament, it would be a huge problem. So I think it's vital we've got him back at 100% fit.
And how does Harry Maguire look to you so far? So much talk about whether he should or shouldn't be in the squad, but it seems that Gareth Southgate knows his main 2 men at the back, and it's him and Stones.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always been the case, that most people would say they're the 2 best centre-backs in this country. That's why Gareth Southgate's always gone towards them. Obviously, it's been a tough few months for Harry Maguire, and it was more about how he dealt with the situation mentally rather than as performances on the pitch, because for England, he's been outstanding. And yeah, I felt he would pick him. He's always very loyal to certain players who've done well for him over the years, certainly in tournaments, so you can understand that from Gareth Southgate. And as I said, it was a game against Iran. England will be disappointed. They conceded 2 goals, and Iran hit the woodwork. We shouldn't forget that. But they're England's best 2. I think Harry Maguire again showed his dominance on set pieces, which he's proven very adept at in the last couple of tournaments as well. So that could be a big bonus for England going forward. But they'll be coming up against much better opposition the further we go on in this tournament. And I think obviously the USA will be a lot stronger than Iran were as well.
That applies to Jude Bellingham as well, who looked fantastic against Iran, and I know there are tougher tests to come, and I know we go overboard very easily in this country about good players, but we're allowed to go a bit overboard, aren't we, about Jude Bellingham?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to be captain in a club, the size of Borussia Dortmund at 19 years of age as a young foreign player in Germany, it shows you, how they feel about him. I think we know he's a special talent. He already feels like he's one of the main players in the England team, and it's only the real special players that do that. You think of Michael Owen, as soon as he come on the scene, he felt like one of England's best players. The same with Wayne Rooney. And it feels like now the same with Jude Bellingham. And I think him and Declan Rice are going to be the mainstay in England's central midfield for the next sort of 2 or 3 tournaments. And the 2 of them will probably be vying with each other over the next couple of years to see who's the captain of England, because when Harry Kane eventually gives the armband up, but he's no longer involved in the England squad, I think it's either Jude Bellingham or Declan Rice will be captain.
There's been a few comments flying around this week about the previous generation that you were part of, maybe being in fact the bronze generation, not the golden generation. Kyle Walker saying that this has the opportunity to be better than the so-called golden generation. How do you see it?
Well, I agree with them because they've achieved far more in the last couple of tournaments than any squad that I was ever involved in. When we talk about, the golden generation or, the great players there, we think of them as individual players, but, football is a team game and we never conquered that in terms of being a great team. We're a great set of individuals and we saw that more for the club sides than we did at an international level, whereas a lot of these lads now, they're taking the form that we see in the Premier League onto the international stage. So, as I said, if we were called the golden generation, I think you've got to call these something pretty similar because they've already achieved far more than the squads I was involved in. So I have to agree with Kyle Walker.
You've written in your Daily Telegraph column that there isn't one great team here. This could be won by an outsider, this tournament. You'd presumably put England in the mix amongst many. Is there anything to fear from what we've seen elsewhere?
No, I don't think so. I think normally when you go into a World Cup, you always feel there's maybe 2 or 3 teams who can win it. But the fact that it's a different World Cup in the middle of a season, there's been no warm-up games to build up to. There doesn't feel like there's one outstanding team in this era, if you like, the way we had Spain before or France before. Italy won the Euros and then didn't qualify for the World Cup. So we might be in a stage where, as I said in the column, where in 2004, I think Greece win the Euros, 2006, Italy win the World Cup with no one really thinking they could before the tournament. And as I said, Italy have just won the Euros and then we're in a World Cup now where I think someone could win it who we didn't expect to win it before the tournament. There may be a lot of factors around that, but it doesn't feel like there's one outstanding team. I think for me, France have the best individuals, the best squad, if you like, but they've had so many injuries that you think that maybe will affect them, but they've got still such a strong 11 to put out as we saw against Australia. So I think England are in a group of 6 to 8 teams who on any given day could beat each other, and that's why I think it's going to be a great World Cup and could be really open.
So if England do meet France in the last 8, and obviously they're on course to do so as it stands, you'd be a little bit concerned?
Yeah, I think France are a better team than us, but it doesn't mean we couldn't win a one-off game. And this is not France at their strongest if, we both meet at that stage. They've got a lot of injuries, but it just shows the strength in depth that they have, that they're missing Benzema, Kante, Pogba. I think Varane missed out on the first game, and then the players they bring in are all playing for, some of the best, club sides in the world. So the strength in depth of the French is something to behold, really, and that's why it would be a big fear in that quarter-final. But as I said, it's a one-off game. There's real belief there from England, certainly in that first game. But as I said, if it was to be France in the quarter-final, there's still 3 games to go before that, so a lot can change.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's my fault. What about the One Love armband and England's late decision that they felt they were bounced into to not wear it? You saw the Germany gesture covering their hands yesterday. At a tournament, players spend more time together. They inevitably talk to each other probably more than they would at club level. Do you imagine there will have been a lot of chat amongst what's quite an aware generation about what the best thing is to do?
Yeah, I think so. It feels to me like Gareth Southgate and certainly as senior players, there's a good group of them. I'm sure there's a lot of communication going on between them of lots of issues, and I'm sure this being such a big issue, there would have been a lot of chatter before, and they come to the decision not to wear. I was disappointed with that, but I can understand it. No, ideally you don't want Harry Kane on a booking going into a game. I looked at where Wales with Gareth Bale, he was in the same situation being the captain, and he actually got booked in the game. And you just think, how would that have affected Wales going forward in terms of, either them being suspended, if he's actually taken that yellow card to wear the armband. So I'm not going to be too critical of the captains in those, situations. I mean, a lot of this comes down to FIFA, the country that obviously this tournament's in Qatar. It should never have this tournament. I've made my feelings well known on that. I think it's a bit of a joke, really. I've just watched a TV documentary on FIFA and how Qatar and other World Cups were given. So I think if we're going to point the finger at anybody with situations like this, it should be certainly the host nation and FIFA.
Have you seen anything good that FIFA have done the last week or so?
Anything good FIFA have done?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, you talk about the Sepp Blatter years that went before. We've now got Infantino there. I mean, the statement or press conference he gave a few days ago was an absolute... I thought it was a disgrace. Almost like a joke figure. I think there's well, what supporters there are in certain stadiums. I think there's been people chanting he should, lose his job, and that's it's just. It's not right. The head of an organisation like that, as I said, there's a documentary on TV right now that I think people should watch and tell you the real truth about, how FIFA are at the standing within the game.
We've seen massive amounts of time added on at the end of games. A lot of people have said it's a joke. A lot of other people have said, actually, that's what should happen. If there's been a delay, you should have the time added on. What do you think?
I'm for it. I think there's too much time wasting within the game. I think some of the times that have come on, it's not just time wasting. It feels like there's a separate subject where I think there's a real energy around sort of officials right now and people at the top of the game that the ball isn't in play long enough in a game. We're almost getting to sort of, I think the average is sort of 55 to 60 minutes max for what we all know is a 90-minute game. Now, we're not naive enough to know that the ball would ever be in play for 90 minutes, but I think Kalina is trying to get that number up, so we're getting more actual football. People are getting the ball in play more. So I don't think it's just about time wasting. I think it's that ball in play situation as well, and keeping an eye on that. But in terms of time wasting, I'm all for it. I think it happens too often in the Premier League, and it'll happen too often in tournaments. And if you're putting times of sort of 8 to 10 minutes on the end of games, maybe that will prevent teams from time wasting, because we always know, no matter what goes on in the second half, the fourth official puts a board up, and it's always 3 or 4 minutes, no matter what's going on in the second half. Substitutions, goals, sendings off, time wasting. It was always the same. So, let's stamp it out.
We're going to see Cristiano Ronaldo at the World Cup for the first time in a couple of hours. What do you think about the idea that he might end his club career in Saudi Arabia?
Doesn't bother me. That's up to him. He's had a fantastic career. He's obviously left Manchester United right now. I think everyone's made their feelings known on that situation, myself included. But Cristiano Ronaldo, it's up to him to see where he wants to go in his career. It'll depend on what type of club wants him. I'm sure he still wants to play at the highest level, but it's not easy when you get to his age to keep playing at the highest level, and for those other clubs to want you, because more often than not, clubs want to bring in younger players, more longevity. The contracts, they can have them for a few years and then they can maybe sell them on as well. So I think it will be difficult for Cristiano Ronaldo to play for what we all see as one of the top clubs. But if he was to move to another country, I'm sure he'll go there and do really well and score lots of goals. And I think that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to play till he's 40. So he maybe needs to play in a league where that gives him a great chance of doing that. And I think he wants to be the greatest goal scorer of all time. I think he's very close to that, but I think he'll still want to break more records.